I'm Gabe Lullo, and welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast. We're talking to go-to-market leaders and entrepreneurs who have conquered the challenges, the hustle, and the grind. Get ready for real talk, real insights, and no fluff.
But the hardest thing in the world right now is not actually closing deals, it's actually getting somebody's attention.
If you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
You need to go in and you need to make it sound like yourself. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And I promise you, we can all tell.
The people that are trolls and the people that are haters never done the thing that you're doing.
I love doing this podcast because I get a front row seat to some of the greatest minds in sales.
Gone are the days of saying stay in your lane. When you're an executive leader and you're an enterprise-wide leader, there are no lanes. You've got to be partners.
Curiosity is like when the type of questions you ask is sometimes the value that you bring.
I need you to tell me when you're ready to buy or what you're ready to do. And I think it's changed so much into like adding more value. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to come off as desperate.
High pressure selling is like a dinosaur tactic at this point.
No parent is like, oh, you should be a salesperson when you grow up, right? Everyone's like a doctor, lawyer, whatever crap. It's never salespeople.
It's not your job to motivate people. It's your job to find motivated people.
It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. It's confidence knowing I know this and I know that I can help you.
From where I started to where I am today is all because I learned how to sell.
And there's too many people who have only been doing this for 5 freaking minutes. Sit down, close your mouth, actually go out there and get yourself beat up, then come back and tell me if something is dead or not.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because right there, that's the epitome of doing hard things.
Welcome back to the Do Hard Things podcast with Lexi and Gabe. Today's guest, Seung, is a retired U.S. Air Force colonel, former assistant professor of economics at the Air Force Academy, and the author of the upcoming book, Leaderomics. Blending 25 years of military leadership with a passion for teaching and mentorship, he focuses on what he calls priceless leadership, the belief that people aren't just resources, but relationships to be stewarded with care, purpose, and concise. In Leaderomics, he shares life and leadership lessons shaped by his enduring relationship with a unique mentor, economics. It's a fresh take on leadership that bridges data and dignity, metrics and meaning. Seung, welcome to the show.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Do Hard Things podcast. So excited to be here with all of you. Gabe and Lexi, your hosts, and we're here with Seung Paik. And Seung, we just heard your bio. We're super pumped that you're here. And we always like to start off with origin story, right? We want to get to know not only you and what you do for work and for a living, and obviously your career, but mostly what made you start, what made you push through the hard things, and what got you on this amazing journey that you're on. So, your leadership journey really started in the Air Force, from what we know, right? And eventually it led you to the classroom and now, as authorship. So what sparked that passion for leadership in the first place?
Thanks, Gabe. First of all, thank you, Gabe, Lexi. Thank you for having me on your show. I love what you guys do. I love your business model, your culture, and the fact that you're in the world of sales, but what you bring to the fight to your team in the way of leadership development, and culture, that is why your team excels. It's because you get it. You get it from the standpoint of leadership and culture. And once you do that, culture, like I used to always like to say, you take care of culture, and culture will take care of your organization. And I feel like you guys do that. So thank you. I'm honored to be here. And with regard to your question, I'm a guy that at the age of 17, I had to pivot pretty quick a couple of times. Went into the Air Force, had no idea what the Air Force was about or the military was about. I was a gymnast in high school, and my gymnastics coach thought, hey, I think Seung might be a good fit with one of the service academies, West Point Naval Academy or the Air Force Academy. And so the Air Force Academy was the first service academy to reach out. They saw my video clip and said, hey, why don't you come on out and do gymnastics and go to a great school? And so I go out to this place in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Being from the suburbs of Illinois, I went from flatlands, never having seen the mountains, and then I'm in the foothills of the Rockies, and it's beautiful. And then I hear bugles blowing, planes flying, and young men and women marching around as though they've got this higher purpose. And I'm like, what kind of strange utopia is this? And so all of that resonated with me. And oh, by the way, it just so happened to be the summer after Top Gun, the original Top Gun, right? So everybody wants to be the next Maverick. I really don't, but I'm there. I want to do gymnastics. And so off we go into the wild blue yonder. And I quickly find out that 99% of the people there, right, they want to fly. They want to be the next Maverick. But I've got a couple problems. I got bad eyesight, and I'm one of those guys that gets sick on commercial flights. And so this whole flying pilot thing wasn't for me. But more important than being a pilot at these institutions, they call them a leadership laboratory. And that's because it's literally 4 years of intensive leadership training, leadership development, character development, strategy, tactics, operations, missions. We talk about heroes from the past, military history, POWs. So this is the kind of stuff that's embraced in that culture. And I'm not talking about just for a month or two. I'm not talking about a seminar. This is 24/7 for 4 years. And so that's what I got brought into. Because I wasn't gonna fly, and I knew that, I immediately gravitated and pivoted toward this thing called leadership that I really enjoyed. And so that's where everything began to come together in terms of sparking my interest in leadership, having a heart for leadership, and then, of course, just being at a place that's of military service and service to our nation. It's just kind of a part of our culture there.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for your service. Leaderomics was born out of your relationship with economics. When did you first start seeing economics, not just as a subject, but as a guide for life and leadership?
As most good things that hit you and stick, it comes out of crisis, right? It's through trial and through crisis. And so, like I said, I was at this institution where 99% of the people, I looked to my left, I looked to my right, they all want to fly. And I remember my roommate first asking me, "Hey, son, what jet do you want to fly?" And I said, "I don't want to fly." And you could just see in his eyes drop, right? He was like, "What do you mean you don't want to fly?" And, I used to say that the service academies are free because they're 100% government funded. But if you don't know much about the military and you don't know much about flying, and that's not why you're there, you quickly find out that free isn't really free. And so it was quite a crisis that I had at a young age of 17. And it's not a 4-year college commitment, it's a 5-year service commitment thereafter. So here you are, you're 17, you've got a 9-year commitment in front of you. That's probably longer than most marriages last. And how am I going to navigate this path in this culture called the military that I wasn't really even thinking about? I needed a mentor, but I looked to my left, I looked to my right, they're all marching to the same beat. I call my parents and they're like, "We're so proud of you." I'm like, okay, can somebody subjectively probe my heart, subjectively probe where I'm at in life, and then yet still find and provide me objective guidance? And so I'm in Econ 101, and I've got this crazy professor, and he's literally in uniform on day one of Econ. And he comes in, he starts flailing his arms, moving in some strange contorted flow. And then he says to all of us, "Guys, what's the purpose of Econ?" No clue. So then he goes to the grease board, takes a grease marker, and starts doing all of this stuff on the grease board. Same thing as his dance. He's drawing this roller coaster curve, right? And then he gets to the end, and once again, he says, "What's the purpose of Econ?" And we're like, "Sir, no idea. Where are you getting to?" Although he was keeping us awake because he was pretty entertaining. And then finally he says, "Okay, I know you guys have all had calculus because it's a prerequisite to this class. So what's the purpose of first derivative calculus?" Well, we're at a technical STEM university. We all know calculus, and we're all geeks. And so we all raise our hands. And we're like, oh, we know, we know. He says, "Yes, go ahead." And we're like, "It's to find the slope at a point on the curve." And he says, "Exactly. The purpose of econ, like first derivative calculus, is that in the confusion and in the chaos and in the uncertainty of life, you need to find a point that's going to guide you straight forward onto the next thing. Drop the mic, right?
I love it. I love it. That's incredible, man. So you talk a lot about tension, right? And so when I was reading that, you say what is and what should be. So was there a moment in your military career and your teaching career when that tension became really deeply personal for you?
It did, so um, the what is and the what should be is, I hope, a tension that everybody feels, right? Because everybody feels this state of where they're at versus where they want to go. And it's not just for themselves, but it's for the people that are around them, right? They see this incredible possibility. They see this incredible gift, talent, potential. But they also see that it's going to take a number of steps to get to where they want to go. And so economics and the way that it was presented to me was this notion of economics as a market system is constantly showing us the what is of society. So, for example, like in 1999, I don't know if you ever heard this story, but there was an eBay auction for a human kidney. And the person put a kidney out on the market for 25,000. We're talking within minutes, it skyrocketed to 6 million, right? The what is of economics, it doesn't get into any morality. It doesn't get into any ethics. It just simply shows that in a market, if you've got a valuable product, a high demand, and a very low supply, market's going to show what is going to happen. It's going to drive that price to who knows where, right? What should be is, but is that good? Should that be? Is it right that we've got human organs and kidneys out in the open market for sale, right? And so econ is always telling us what is, but then trying to remind society where you should be and where you should go. And when I was teaching economics, by God's grace, and I look at it as a very great blessing, I was teaching right when it was 9/11. And so 9/11 happened. And I was teaching at the Air Force Academy. So come full circle, I was that student and now I'm that teacher. I walk into the classroom and life had literally changed overnight. 9/11 was our Pearl Harbor, right? So I walk into a classroom. It's not just any classroom, it's the Air Force Academy. So it's a bunch of military students who are about to graduate in a few years, and they're going to be going into harm's way. And one day, there are a bunch of free loving military college students, and immediately they're suddenly facing that roller coaster curve I was talking about, right? They're facing that chaotic, confusing, daunting challenge in front of them right after 9/11, and having that look of sobriety and sorrow and confusion. And at that moment, Econ 101 from a textbook, utilizing graphs and math, that was going to go in one ear and out the other, Gabe. It just wasn't going to resonate. They wanted to know, does economics, right? Does it have a conscience? Does economics have a soul? Can it get us from what I'm seeing to where we want to be ideally, right? And so it's in there that Leaderonomics was born. I put away the textbook, I put away the traditional econ, and I brought econ solely from a place of memoir and told it in story form, because stories speak to the heart. They don't go in one ear and out the other. And so that's how I delivered economics. So yeah, long answer to your question. Big gap between what is and what should be, and econ is constantly trying to push us toward what should be, not just the $6 million kidney.
Yeah, that's very powerful. Thank you so much. What did those early leadership mistakes, learning moments really teach you about the difference between managing people and truly leading them?
It's a great question, Lexi. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I encountered Unfortunately, it was early in my career. It wasn't military related, but it was while I was in the military. I was stationed in Osan Air Base, Korea. I was newly married. My wife and I, we went out to go grab a bite to eat. We had 2 of our friends in the back seat of our car. And when you were in Korea in 99, and it was about an hour and a half on the outskirts of Seoul. So Seoul is a booming metropolis, but once you leave Seoul, South Korea, it's pretty rural. And so we went out to dinner, had some great Korean barbecue, and I'm leaving the restaurant, and my worst nightmare happens. I'm on a 2-lane interstate, but it's completely pitch black. You can't see a thing because, like I said, it's a rural road, no street lamps. Standing literally on a dividing yellow line. That's the only thing dividing 2 lanes of traffic this way and 2 lanes of traffic that way. Standing right in the middle of that yellow line is a grandmother with 2 bags of groceries. And I did not see her. And just as I hit full throttle and as I accelerated, boom! My wife screams. The 2 people sitting in the back, they scream. And my wife is like, "You just hit someone." I get out of the car and I see this grandmother just kind of wailing, but she was still alive. I just instinctively reacted. I threw her in the back seat. We went to the nearest hospital. Thank God I spoke about 4th grade Korean. We got her to the hospital, and as we bring her in, they immediately whisk her away, and then the doctors and the nurses and the attendants come up to us, and they ask, "Are you her son?" And I said, "No." "Oh, are you her nephew?" "No." Are you her grandson?" I said, "No." They said, "Oh, who are you?" I said, "I'm the guy who hit her." And they go, "Huh?" Because at that time, the law in Korea was such that if it was a motorist pedestrian accident, the motorist is always at fault. And so they immediately advised me, contact your lawyer. I said, "I don't have a lawyer." "Contact your insurance company, contact your base, get them over here right away before their family comes. Because the minute their family comes, they're going to go after everything for you," right? Well, long story short, I call my insurance company, USAA. A representative in Korea is available 24/7 for this military guy. I get on the phone. I'm in a panic. I just hit a lady. I don't know how she's going to do. I have no idea what I'm going to be taken for. And the lady literally calms me down. And by the way, I didn't have the greatest insurance plan. Matter of fact, the only thing I had was a liability coverage. And I paid very little. And so the lady calms me down and she says, "Captain Pack, everything's going to be okay. We've got this undercover. You're going to be fine. We just want to know if you're okay." I learned an important lesson that night about insurance. Insurance may manage risk, but the best insurance providers cover risk. They don't get into the fine print. When crazy things happen, when a mess occurs, they don't get you to worry. They cover you. They provide the ultimate top coverage. That's great insurance. Now, if I didn't get that coverage, the rest of that year, I probably would have sold that car, stayed on the base, never would have seen the rest of that beautiful country that's known as my birthland. But because of that coverage and that reassurance, I got back on the road the next day. And I was driving all over the place, seeing everything I was supposed to be seeing. And oh, by the way, they did take care of everything. I never got a single bill. I never saw a single notice of anything. The only thing I was told was, "Hey, it wasn't your fault. And oh, by the way, the grandmother, she's going to be okay," right? The leadership lesson I learned at a young age right there is managers manage risk. Leaders lead risk. Managers, they look at the fine print. Leaders, they provide ultimate coverage and they don't get into all the deductibles.
That's probably one of the greatest stories I've ever had on this podcast. That is absolutely immense. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm glad she's okay. And I'm glad you're okay. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Sung. Um, I was wanted to talk about you talk about priceless leadership, which I think definitely intertwines with that story as well. So for all the leaders listening who feel stuck really in like the bottom line or that transactional culture, how can they begin shifting their mindset to being leadership that covers risk, right? A person that does priceless leadership, as you like to say, as opposed to getting into that fine print and managing the minutia. How do they get out of that and make that paradigm shift?
So let me give you just two thoughts on that, Gabe. One is one of the great things about being in the military, and this is going to kind of sound kind of strange, is how do you reward some of your people for doing great work?
Well, we got promotions, we got compensation, time off, picking specific prizes to what drives them, understanding their why and reasons why they're doing what they're doing every day. We helped somebody who buy a big screen TV for their mom for Mother's Day because that's what he wanted to do versus getting a $800 commission check. So I think we really do a lot more than 98% of sales teams. But that would be my answer.
That is the right answer, right? I mean, you're taking care of your folks. You're you're recognizing them tangibly. The dollar speaks, right? They do great things. You reward them, especially in your world of sales. They do well on sales. They ought to be receiving a part of that financial reward. And I suppose that if your people did great work and they never saw an extra dollar recognized or tied to that great work, your words of "Hey, great job" is only going to go so far, right? Uh, in the military, I don't have an extra dollar to give them. I can't give them. I can't. The government won't give me another 100 extra bucks. Hey, son, here's another 100 extra bucks. Go give it to that young man who did a great job. I don't have that at my disposal. I don't have a single dollar at my disposal. So, son, how do you inspire, motivate, influence, encourage, drive these guys to knock down walls, to climb over things, to break through things, to put themselves in harm's way, to continue to do great things, hard things, and you can't give them an extra buck? So you learn pretty quick in military leadership. You know what you got to give them, Gabe? You got to give them you. You got to give them something priceless. And you know what's priceless? You. You're priceless as a leader. You got to give them your human you. You also got to give them a constant, repetitive, like a beating drum. You got to remind them communication, hyper communication of core values, vision, standards, purpose, the reason why matters in the military. So if I can't give you $1,000 because you did $5,000 worth of great work, then I better give you something better. I better give you me. And that's where priceless leadership comes in, right? It's the recognition that I'm looking at you. You are of priceless value doing priceless things, and I can't even give you a tangible dollar. So I got to give you something. So I got to give you me. And I got to give you a reminder of why we're doing what we're doing. And that's getting back to the purpose, the mission, the core values, and just hyper communication about that.
That's awesome. And your students once asked you, does econ have a soul? And I've seen online that really stayed with you. Could you tell us more about that?
It totally stays with me. I mean, have you ever read the book by David Brooks, where he talks about there's two types of virtues. One is resume virtues, and then the other is eulogy virtues, right? And we work 99% of our lives fixated on the resume virtues, our credentials, our status, our material wealth, our comforts, all the things that people on LinkedIn praise you about, all of those testimonials that talk about metrics and numbers and growth. Oh, this past quarter, oh, this past year, we made this or we did that. And those are great things, but I'm telling you, those are resume virtues. And the soul part is the constant reflection and the reminder of living for the eulogy virtues, right? There isn't a single resume item on the eulogy virtues. The eulogy virtues are the people that are the closest around you from your inner circle that then extends out. They're the people that say, let me tell you about Lexi. Let me tell you about what kind of person she is and what she brings to the fight. Let me tell you about what her character is. Let me tell you what she does during her downtime. I used to say, Gabe, just because we're in the service doesn't mean we're a person of service, right? Just because I wear the uniform doesn't mean I have this service heart internalized. And I used to tell my young guys, you want to know whether or not you're a person of service? Let me take a look at your evenings and weekends when you're out of uniform. Let me take you a look at your weekend evenings when you're out of uniform, right? Right. Let's peel back the metrics. Let's really see what service is about. And so that's where I get into this idea of eulogy virtues. It's what people say behind closed doors when you're not there, and they're talking about not your numbers, they're talking not your performance, not your productivity. They're all maybe a reflection of those things, but there's something far deeper, right? And it's who you are in your character, in your leadership, right? In your ethics, and in your service. And that's the kind of stuff you want when you go to the grave. That's the kind of stuff you want people talking about.
100%. And you're not just a leader and an educator, you also create content, starting a podcast. What inspired you to start doing all of these insights in that format, and how has it really shaped your thinking?
Well, I'm a little guilty here. Y'all are gonna laugh at this, right? So I just wrote a book, right? And when I retired from the military, I really went into the sunset. And I've been speaking on Leadernomics for the better part of 20 plus years. It was birthed in the classroom. And then from the classroom, it just kind of, word kind of spread. And then the next thing I knew, I had universities calling me, hey, speak about Leadernomics. I had the military calling me, hey, speak about Leadernomics. I had general officers far higher in rank than me. Hey, Seung, can you give us some leadership lessons? I'm like, who am I to give you leadership lessons? And they were asking me to fly all over the place and give leadership lessons to our military members and to our government civilians. And so I've been doing this for a while. And every time I would speak afterward, I would always get that group of people that would come up to me and say, hey, is there a book? Where can we get more of this stuff? And I said, well, you just got to invite me back to speak again. Right. And then I realized I retired and I just went into the sunset and I started getting like text messages and emails and phone calls. And I was terrible about responding back. I had no network. I was never on LinkedIn, never on social media. And so people are like, where are you? Like, we want more of Leadernomics. And I just felt incredibly convicted that I just dropped this aha on people and just left them hanging. And so about 4 years ago, my wife said, hey, son, I'm just tired of people calling and asking about leader. Would you just write the book? Just write the book. And so, Gabe, I'm not a writer. I'm a speaker. And yet I thought, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. Piece of cake. Just take all my notes, transfer it onto a couple of pages. I got a book, right? No, not that easy, because just right now, I'm reading your facial expression. I'm hearing your tone. I get a sense of your vibe and your character, and you're communicating to me in about 5 different ways right now without saying a single word. That was me. That's how I communicate. By the way, I'm wearing Tar Heels because I got to give a shout out to my son and all his friends in North Carolina who follow me on LinkedIn. But so there I am, trying to take 5 to 6 forms of communication into one form of communication, the written word. And what I thought was going to be about an 18-month project turned into a true labor and journey of love. Ended up being a little over 3 years to get all of my heartfelt emotion, passion, and convey that to the audience just in written prose and narrative. And boy, that was a tremendous exercise. But I'm going to tell you something. When you do that for 3+ years, you know what you find? You know what you find, Gabe? You find your voice. You find your authentic voice. And I thought I had it, but I really found it. So now going back to your question, Lexi, to all this, how does this come into play? So I was out of all social media, all that stuff. I finished the book. I'm wrapping things up. I contact the publicist, and the publicist is great. We like your book. We think it's going to do great. What's your social media platform looking like? And I said, non-existent. And they said, what do you mean non-existent? I said, non-existent. And they said, well, it's a thought leader book, so that's okay. It's okay. As long as you've got LinkedIn, how's your LinkedIn doing? Non-existent. The publicist says, how are you going to get your book out into the world? And I said, that's why I'm calling you. And the publicist says, oh, no. The game has changed. It's not like that. You have to have presence on social media. So long story short, I got on LinkedIn literally about 8.5 weeks ago. About 8.5. But you know what? A lot can happen in 8.5 weeks, right? And so so I've been posting like crazy, putting content out there like crazy, and quickly finding in 8.5 weeks, people are resonating with this notion of leadernomics. How does economics bridge? And I've had economics. I didn't like it. I didn't like it when the professor did the supply and the demand curve. I didn't like it when the professor did the math and the graphs and the data. But he's talking to me about market value going to priceless value. He's talking to me about market relationships, like this whole thing that everything of economics is based on relationships. Oh yeah, you can't have supply without demand. You can't have producers without consumers. You can't have employees without employers, and you can't have leaders without followers. It's all about a market relationship. And so I've just basically taken all the core principles of economics and distilled it into this thing called priceless relationship leadership. And it's all there. It's always been there, right? And people on LinkedIn now are looking at the content and they're saying, give me more. And I'm saying, let's go. Let's do this. And so long story short, I'm so energized. And by the way, I'm old now. And so I'm out on LinkedIn and I'm seeing like everybody who's younger than me looks so young. And they're so ambitious and they're so energetic and they're so hungry for not just more tools. They don't want more tools, Gabe. They want a paradigm shift, right? They don't want more tools for their tool bag. They want the brand new bag itself, right? They want a fresh perspective and paradigm. This is a fresh perspective and paradigm. This is leadernomics, right? So that's why I think quickly people are engaging. They're excited. They're interested. And I'm excited to deliver it because there's nothing new under the leadership sun, but there's a fresh way to deliver it. And this is pretty fresh.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're really excited about the book. It's just about to come out. So, by the way, welcome to LinkedIn. It's funny, Lexi's story is pretty awesome too. A year ago, she had 400 followers on LinkedIn. And when she joined our team, I said, Lexi, we're going to take this to the next level for you. And now she's approaching 13,000 followers in a year. So pretty amazing.
Get out.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah. So
It's luck. I love that. You know why I love that? I love that for two reasons. One, I love, Gabe, that you prodded her to get networking and going on LinkedIn. And I got to tell you, I was a hypocrite. I did that to my guys. I told them, get out there, network, get on LinkedIn. You're going to need it when you get out of the military. And I wasn't doing it. So I'll just put that out there. I will confess that was a big failure. And when leaders do that, and when you're doing that with your team, that is fantastic. That is next level leadership. And then Lexi, the fact that you took the baton and ran with it, and I mean, you're like sprinting with it. I love that.
Thank you.
That. Yeah, I mean, shoot, man, let's go.
So let me transition this into really kind of balance because you've created an amazing book. I can't wait to get my hands on it. You're obviously jumping into the content game. You've been training and teaching and educating and speaking for so many years, but you've also served and you've taught and you've led. But now with the book, what is these practices that you may be doing personally to really stay grounded through all these transitions, right? These really chapters, for a lack of a better word, right? In your career, how do you stay balanced?
Grounded. So This show's called Do Hard Things, right? Leading is hard things, right? Leading your family is hard things. Leading your company is hard things. Priceless leadership is hard things. And oh, by the way, priceless leadership, because I want to give one nugget about it before I get off the show. I do want to tell you this. If you want to put one thing in action, just have this mindset about priceless leadership. Take everything that's priced, your bottom line numbers, your metrics, your profits, your revenues, your awards, your recognition, your tools, your assets, whatever they are, go after it. I got no problems going after the bottom line. No problems. Because then what you're going to do with that is you're going to pivot and you're going to ask yourself, how can I take all of that goodness, all of that material goodness and wealth and success that we're accruing as a person, team, and in a company, and how am I going to reinvest it into my people, my clients, and my customers? That's where it goes from priced leadership. That's where it goes from market value to inherent priceless value. You got to make that pivot. Everything that you see that's tangible, you got to reinvest it into that which is intangible. And then what's going to happen is this. Those tangible numbers that you had goals and standards for, don't box it in anymore, because now you're going to get the unimaginable. The minute you take the tangible and invest it into the intangible, go ahead and expect the unimaginable. Don't box yourself into metrics anymore. You're going to be surprised. That's priceless leadership. That is leadernomics, taking market to inherent, price to priceless, right? That's linear. That's the slope straightforward. That's the confusion bringing you out of confusion, right? And then getting back to the grounded. You do hard things time and time again. Every time you do a hard thing, it does not puff you up. Because every time you do a hard thing, you know what you recognize? You recognize your weaknesses. You recognize your flaws. That's why people don't like to do hard things, because it's uncomfortable. But it's every time that we're uncomfortable that we have to face fears, that we have to face failures, that we have to face our weaknesses, our blind spots. That's humbling. That's grounding. That's where I come from. And therefore, right? You know why you do hard things? And you know why hard thing people are humble? People are humble because they do hard things. And it keeps you humble.
You've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for all the motivation, the stories. This is awesome. Who is the best person who should read your book? Where can they find it? And how should they reach out to you?
Everyone should read it. Lexi, I'm going to have 2 million followers on LinkedIn by the end of the year. Let's go. I'm racing you. I'm racing you. But no, seriously, quite honestly, when it comes to priceless leadership, everybody needs it. CEOs, executives, top leaders, government leaders, they need it, because you know what? At the end of the day, right? If you don't produce the bottom line numbers, you're not going to be in leadership very long. I get that. You got to produce. You got to perform. I get that. But you know what? Don't box yourself in. Don't just produce the metrics. Don't just expect your folks to produce your expectations, because you know what? If you do that, that's all they'll do. They'll just produce your expectations. We want far beyond that. We want to go way beyond that. And so leaders need it. People need it, right? More than your $100 reward, I want you, Gabe. I want your priceless investment in me, right? That means a heck of a lot more to me than $100. What you did for Dalton on your sales team and launching him like that, that is far more valuable. The mentorship, the leadership, and the character development, the confidence and the energy that you've pushed out into that young man and into the world. Do you know what kind of a multiplying effect that's going to have? Right? That's far greater than recognizing with $100, right?
Exactly.
So leaders need it. Priceless leadership, Dalton needs it, right? The marginalized need it. The middle managers need it. The people that are in the grind, that are producing the numbers, they need it. So, and then you know who else really needs it? people who are graduating college, graduating their MBAs, thinking they're ready for leadership, thinking they're going to knock the socks off this world because they're going to meet profits and revenues, and they're going to forget bedside manners. They're going to forget their bedside manners, which is called leadernomics. They're going to forget what Econ 101 was all about. And so they need it. They need a refresher. They need a reminder.
I love it. And as a person with an economics and a marketing degree, I just love the transition and how you were able to bring this all together. You've been an amazing guest, like Lexi said. Thank you so much, Seung, for all you do, and we can't wait to read the book. Super excited to see your following count grow and your content on LinkedIn, and we're big fans of yours. So thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate what you guys do. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.